Alrighty, hello all, and welcome to the stream. Where's my little gremlin at? Where is the Mini-Mancer? Mini, psst, psst, psst. Where you at? Hello? Is that you?
What do you want? I was asking it a question.
Asking it?
Yes.
Which is the it?
But the axe. You see, I can...
Oh, did you hear its name?
No, I heard its name, and it's my home now. I live in the axe. Hi, chat.
Hello, chat, and welcome to the second episode. I think we're gonna call this the Waystone Inn from now on. I hope
Yes.
you guys enjoy that part of it at least. We'll convert the Himbros Tavern to the Waystone Inn, but we will keep all of the ancient relics like Cardboard Coup around and his famous out for milk note. Um, we do have to get one of those missing person things put on a milk jug. I think we're gonna have that for next week. Somebody's got to find
Lovely.
that man. Bad dog.
Indeed, indeed.
Minnie was technically planking. Yes.
Yes. I was planking a ton.
But God, I am so excited to go over these chapters today. So much crap, so much hype shit happened in these. I literally was like shaking at my desk when I was rereading this. I don't know about you guys, but I am hyped for today. Minnie, you have anything to say?
I was very hyped, but please understand that today we're going to be going over chapters that are dark as hell. So if you have issues with the topics of torture, abject horrible poverty and child abuse, please take that into consideration.
Yes, this is most certainly the trauma arc.
Yes.
So I guess we'll slap on the disclaimer warning right now. It's not for the weak of heart, and there will be some definitely abrasive topics covered today.
Yes.
And I was also informed this week that I was actually Norded in Kingdom Hearts. That's where my glow comes from.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either.
Good night, ghost.
Good night, Ghost. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you caught the beginning, and I'm sure Cardboard Coup gives you a wink back.
Wait. And I don't know. Let me see if I can go loud enough. And I hope you have a good night, ghost.
That was actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm the cardboard cutout of Coup. I lift things up and put them down, specifically my whiskey.
Yeah, you've been around Coup a little too long, huh?
Little bit.
But oh man, I gotta pull up my lengthy sheet of notes. Minnie already informed me that she is going to make fun of me for all of these, so I am gladly accepting it. I'm a note nerd. In D&D, my notes are literally pages long, so I accept this.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to call him a giant nerd. We're gonna be here a while.
That's me. Hi.
Hi. He also puts down enough other stuff. I don't like thinking about that.
What do you mean by that?
I think it's a dick joke.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, he's cardboard now.
He would fit it right in like Paper Mario, you know. We could actually insert him right in there.
I think we should just have him go on adventures.
I want to see somebody get an emulator where they swap out Paper Mario for Cardboard Coup.
That would
It
be
can be
amazing.
done. 100%. I would pay to see that.
All right. Do we have the giggles out? Because I'm pretty sure that all giggles are leaving the area.
Yeah. I mean, it's tempered
Are
with
there?
some sweetness. Yes, there's some sweetness in there.
Not much.
Not
I mean,
much.
yes, sweetness, but we're not getting humor. We're not getting anything but pain.
I
Pure abject pain.
I got like, okay, so your favorite character does put in at least like one line of humor there for us to laugh at.
Fast is wonderful.
Yes.
Fast is wonderful.
Slithers of humanity, best way to say it. Kavath was 8 when in fact he was 11 there, nearly 12. Okay. It's due to the villain called Xehanort. Yes, that is how I got Norded. Apparently Xehanort took over my body. Hydrate, Minnie.
Well, I I'm working on it. I
I
have a
know
seltzer.
you don't drink water. I
I
know
have
it.
seltzer. I have black cherry seltzer, and I'm going to use it in place of whiskey to just drown
Get
my
through
sorrows
this.
because I went everything through again today.
You get the yellow golden eyes if you're Norded.
Oh! Oh no!
Like this. You want to become Norded?
Like mine?
Join us.
Okay, I'm done being big and scary.
I can snap out of it though. We're good.
We got it. We got it.
All right. I think we are ready to jump right into this. All kidding
Yes.
aside, we have a lot to get through today, and there's a lot of like new information dropped, and it can be a little hard to keep up with all this. So I'll try to keep everything as clear as possible. And if I'm ever wrong on something, feel free to chime in.
Yes, and we should make sure that to not get too excited and ruin things because we do have people going through this for the first time, and there is a lot of illusions.
There is, but I will safely say that you could make some speculations without ruining anything as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we start off with chapter 13, which arguably isn't that bad. We're talking about chocolate and cider, some Fanta.
So, basically, story starts out. Kvoth announces announces that he needs a drink. Chronicler asks for chocolate, which is kind of rare, I guess you could say. And Kvoth calls out to Bass to go get it, and Bass says something I thought was hilarious, and I quoted, "Get it yourself, you hack, I'm in the middle of something."
Yes, which is like the best answer to ever give your boss.
But I mean, he kind of gives himself away here. It says, "I was reading the Kellum tincture, and apparently Quoth knows him so well that he knows that Bass wouldn't touch this book with like a 10-foot pole. So he was like, you really need to work on your cover stories when you're eavesdropping."
He's like, oh, Rashi, it's fine. Shh.
And shortly after that, we get into what is the first of our kind of tense moments that seems to happen out of nowhere, right? Like,
it comes out of nowhere. It's just kind of powder keg moment.
Literally just hits you in the face with what happens here. Basically, they have like this old Western kind of like stare down, I guess.
Yep.
And Bass kind of like shifts from the gaze of Chronicler, turns around, and as soon as he turns back to meet the eyes of Chronicler, Chronicler puts I don't know if it's any kind of significant piece of iron, like a sigil or something. But he puts iron on the table and says the name of iron, right?
Yes.
And apparently, as quoted by Quoth, that only 2 people know the name of iron. So this is a rare thing.
Yes, and just to recap, we know that Bast is Fae.
So
Iron.
what happens when Bast hears this, right? And gets sympathetically binded.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
Welcome to the Thunderdome, bitch.
That's kind of what happens. I'm just going over chat. It's interesting to hear the mention of chocolate, period, in a fantasy series. Yeah, I think it is too. It's not like Hershey's is around, right? Coffee and chocolate are way older than people think. This is also true. And Melly says it's just a simple ring. I could jive with that. I didn't know if it was a sigil or if it was, you know, just a slab of like an iron drab? An iron drab?
Ram.
Just and any of those. So I was kind of like taken aback. Bass' immediate reaction is obviously jolted with pain, he makes an attempt to leap forward, but Koth literally catches his wrist and is held dead to a stop before anything
Yes.
can happen. Bast's eyes kind of flood with all one color, and cloven hooves appear, which I'm assuming was like a glamour that he had up. And they really state, kind of poetically, like how if you look closely, it's kind of like reading between the lines, but if you look closely at Bast, you get that something is off. And that's the whole sequence that initiated Chronicler's kind of like, I guess, attack. And I don't know if there was any instance of why Chronicler was like, if it was just his curiosity that made him do this, or if it was a more deep-seated kind of story that we'll get later on.
I don't know. But it is broken up.
And I guess Bast gets his proper introduction. Bastus, son of Remen, Prince of Twilight, Telwith Mael. I don't know if I said any of that right.
You actually did.
So Koth mediates this with introductions, and in my notes I have both remain salty like little children angrily watching each other.
They do, because he says if you guys continue this, you'll both be leaving. One of you will be leaving with a sliver of a story, and the other will be looking for a new teacher.
Mm-hmm. And that's a real threat.
Look, I don't think Coat or Kavoth have ever actually said anything but exactly what they mean to do.
You wish that Bast would get knocked down a peg for once? I think his pride gets knocked down a peg almost every time, right? I think that's the trade-off here. And, you know, Fae are prideful beings, right? So, in essence, I think that may be a little more damaging to Bast than anything else would be, right?
Should we ask the cardboard cutout? Are Fae prideful? Nope.
No answer.
Nope, no answer. Too much pride.
So, I mean, if anyone would know, it would be that man, but where is he? Being a Fae.
Up and milk my bum. But no, I mean, it's not a necessarily long chapter, but it definitely gives a bit of a hint into Bast, which is my favorite. But not the fact we still have him calling him Reshi more, and I don't know, do we ever actually have the name Reshi explained? I can't remember.
You know, if it was explained, it was in the first few chapters we went over, but I think it was just explained that it was another name for teacher, something simple like that.
Right.
So after this happens, you kind of get another look at, oh, you know what? My Moobot is broken, showing the old one. I'm gonna fix that really quick. So basically, we get a glimpse at Koth being seen as somebody younger than he was before, right? Chronicler says he looks no older than 25 and fierce, a fierceness in his eyes that the dark green almost changed to black when this happens, when he's restraining Bast.
Yeah.
And he further mediates by having them shake hands, and they kind of both err on the side of being like guilty, you know, feeling like they did do something wrong on both parts. And Koth kind of like diffuses the situation, saying, "I'm going to prepare food," and I believe the chapter ends with something along the lines, downward, darker clouds on the horizon.
Yes, alluding to all of the chaos that's about to be unleashed. Hold on. I have it right here. Yes. Downward, darker, clouds on the horizon.
Oh, so I was right. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I read quotes.
You're you're more than that, all right?
I'm your Vanna White.
You do more than just press the letters, all right?
I pressed the letter.
And look pretty.
Yeah.
But so that brings us to the end of chapter 13, which is kind of like lighthearted considering everything that's coming up. We get like a little taste into which that Cloth is kind of reawakening his old self with this storytelling, right? Or with the chance to tell his story.
Yes.
So I believe we get sucked back into the story at this point. Do you want to take it away, or do you want me to go ahead? Because I'm gonna change this really quick because it's bothering me.
I can blabber, but feel free to come in. So
Sure.
we're going to pick up with chapter 14, also known as Roll Credits. It's the name of the wind. Obviously, this is the end of the book. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a wonderful journey. I hope you've all enjoyed it. It's a very short book. It just means that, everything ends up happy. Coat grows up, he becomes an innkeeper. Nothing weird happens whatsoever. He's not a king killer. Haha, it's all a joke. But actually, though. So, we pick up in winter. Obviously, it's the first word of the actual chapter, but we're going to be picking up when the Kavoth is riding once more with Ben, and they are going to continue on their journey with sympathetic magic. And it's fine, but I mean, we've had a lot of sympathetic magic talk. If there is one thing that Patrick Rothfuss likes to do, it's iron out his magic to the nth degree, so there is literally no loopholes. I'm fairly certain it's just for the point, so when he goes to a convention and someone goes, actually, he can say, oh no, there's no loophole there.
So the glasses pushers,
Yes.
as I like to say. Actually.
Yes, but it's gonna keep going, and we have a lot to go over. It's like the few pages of this is pretty much just going over concepts of sympathetic magic again.
So, and also kind of like a teaser for Boss Brain, right? Like how can you do these things? Kind of just keeping him on his toes. Like the first thing he asks is how to heat a kettle of water to a boil, and Koth kind of says, well, I would bind it to that stone over there that's been sitting in the sun. And Abenthy was like, you can do better. And next he asks, how would you bring down a hawk? And after some like witty banter about getting Terran to do it.
Yes.
Then Ben saying like, that hawk said something uncouth about your mother.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, but eventually comes to go, well, I would call the wind and make it drag it down.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't gonna go well, is it?
It didn't.
No.
So after a very thought out kind of response using second catalytic chemical binding. We're in Full Metal Alchemist now.
Yes.
So after that remark, he kind of like just flies off the handle and does something. He's like, it's kind of like one of those spur of the moment, like, oh, I'm clever, I'm gonna do this. And Cloth takes a deep breath, spoke words to bind the air in his lungs to the outside air. And he pursed his lips together with a light puff of wind that came out that got the cover of the wagon to kind of pull taut. To which Ben's face was in disbelief and surprise, like, oh, how did he do that? You know? And it might have been in disbelief because the wind just kind of picked up at that moment.
Yes.
Who knows?
But when you bind the air in your lungs, this isn't just for a second. It's as long as you have the binding up.
And what's the problem with binding the air in your lungs to the outside?
Means you can't breathe, bro.
Putting it simply, yeah. Basically, the force that would have been needed to be driven from his lungs at the rate of the outside, it was said like something like 4 men with large bellows wouldn't have been able to do it, right? So we get this kind of like monologue of Quoth and what he's feeling. It's tears streaked my face as I thrashed blindly. I knew I was going to die. My eyes felt hot and red. I raked madly at the earth with hands that were numb, as cold as ice. So it's a dire situation. Like this is something that he should not have done.
Yes, it was absolutely nothing that he should have done. And thankfully, though, Ben does know how to handle this, so he recalls the vague shape of Ben over him and his face looking down at him and words being spoken, and then finally he could take in a breath of air, but not before blacking out. And the next thing he remembers is Ben helping him to his feet and putting him onto his wagon. And for the most part, Ben is very distraught about this, to say the least. Like, he feels guilt. In my humble opinion, he feels very guilty because his student just tried something that could have gotten him killed, and not only that, but he had to lie to Gavoth's mother. Which, as he puts himself, she doesn't deserve that. Because Ben went ahead and said that they were practicing something for an upcoming performance. No danger, your son didn't almost die.
And I think what hurts Ben the most is actually this fact. Not even the fact that Quoth did this. I think it's more so that he had to lie to Quoth's mother.
Yes.
Because I take Ben as a very honest man, and someone who hates to lie in general. And I think this kind of like it's like a double-edged sword for him, you know? Like, yes, he's like, what did I do? I taught this kind of like unassuming, very clever child some very dangerous things.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what Ben is tossing around in his head for the silence of the remainder of the trip, right? And I believe it's only broken up by calls of Greystone.
Yes, it is
Um,
broken up by calls of Greystone. It's just no, and I think there's also I think we can stay that Ben probably is like he's a kid. I kind of forgot he's still a kid. Like I keep telling myself this, but he's gonna make dumb choices. I
mm-hmm.
am teaching him things that are absolutely deadly, and he has the moral compass and the mental capacity of an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old.
And I believe it's mentioned his age at this point is just before he's turning 12, right?
Yes, because we'll get to that in the next chapter.
Right. Let me see. Some wordplay that I wrote down was his father asking for his shirt, saying it's holy, holy.
Yes.
I got a kick out of that. Um, and then I believe there is some singing that goes on between the mother and father with lines where
You can
the
read them if you
mother and
want.
father answers. Yeah, I mean it's beautiful. Go ahead.
Sure. So it starts with the mother. I'm not singing it. Sorry, chat. You don't need your eardrums burst. An evening when the sun is setting fast, I'll watch for you from high above. A time for your return is long since past, but mine is ever faithful love. And the father answered, in the evening when the light is dying, my feet at last are homeward turning. The wind through the willows sighing, please keep the hearth fire burning. It's a very lovely tone that goes about.
And then there, of course, there's a kiss that's shared.
Of
Um,
course, because they are literally the epitome of hopeless romantics.
and I wrote this down because I feel like this is something that's gonna stick with Koth through his travels. This is something that he is going to yearn for, right? Because I believe he even stated that dimly aware that at some point in the future I might want to kiss a lady, and if I did actually want to do a decent job of it. So he kind of takes notes of how his father acts with his mother.
I mean, good man.
I mean, when it's like that kind of, picturesque painting of love, who are you to turn away, right?
Yes. I mean, at that age, I'd probably be like, ooh, cooties! But, you know.
And shortly after that, we get into like what lodestones or the greystones are. They're pieces of star iron that draw all their iron towards them, so magnets, right?
Yes.
And I believe there was like a little thing about the lodestones as well. Like a drawstone, even in our sleep, standing stone by old road is the way to lead you ever deeper into Fey. Waystone as you lay in hill or dell, Greystone leads to something else.
Yes.
So shortly after this, you get into Patrick Rothfuss kind of like ripping into poetry a little bit. A poet is a musician that can't sing. Words have to find a man's mind before they can touch his heart, and some men's mind are woeful small targets. Music touches their hearts directly, no matter how small or stubborn the mind of the man who listens. I had to write that one down.
Yes. No,
And
it's a good quote.
it's a little bit of irony because Patrick Rothfuss in the 10th anniversary edition touts himself as a poet first and foremost that branched off into writing. So it's a little kind of like playful jab that he has at himself.
It is.
And where are we at? Where are we at? So Pat Rothfuss clearly wanted to be in a band when he was younger.
Yes.
100%, and I could share that same sympathy. Um so shortly after that, the mother kind of snorted that his father was an elitist with his skills, and then it turns into uh, Ben asking about the song of Lanra, Lanry,
Yes.
and
Lanray. I think it said Lanray in the audiobook.
Lanray. Okay, this is another reason why I need you to correct me on my bad pronunciations.
Well, the audiobooks themselves can have errors in them, but it's been consistently Lanray.
And another kind of like discounting comes from his father that they will talk whenever his father finishes to give cloth perspective. Ben proposes that a clever, thoughtless person is a dangerous thing um, when thinking about what Quoth did earlier.
Yes. Because being thoughtless and having power is a terrifying thing.
And it's also further kind of emboldened that Ben states he was 20 when he knew as much as Quoth does, which is scary.
Yes.
And Ben kind of shirks off Quoth, saying he'd like to be alone tonight to think about like what happened. And this, I thought this was kind of funny too. The illusion that Quoth's parents would expect alone time, so Quoth went out to look for I believe it was a bundle of sage, right?
Yes.
And shortly after that, he talks about the lessons that came the next day almost were at a standstill. Like, Ben wasn't his normal self, and Ben was not going over the more intricate parts of his teachings anymore. It was very limited. And
No, he was definitely starting to hold back information, but I think Ben just realized this is a kid. He does not have the wherewithal to actually do this. He has the capacity to learn it, but not to wield it properly. At least that's what I took.
yes, I would agree with that. And I think that sentiment kind of like ends the chapter out with like a little sour note, like, oh, this kind of damaged their relationship. I mean, rightfully so.
Yes, it's an absolutely terrifying thing to go through, and it's like I can't imagine being in Ben's shoes. I mean, because of what he taught him, his student nearly died. Because he really should not have been able to do that.
Well, at the rate he was learning, right, Ben probably didn't expect him to be able to do that, and he just kind
No,
of did.
pretty much everything that he puts his mind to. It's like, I just did the thing. You should not have done the thing, kid.
That is going to be a kind of like recurring thing. Is Cloth flies by the seat of his pants. He's a doer, not a talker. He's a doer.
Yes.
So that brings us to chapter 15, and right off the bat, we start with Ben kind of getting his out from the troop,
Yes.
and this is kind of a good thing for Ben. It's put as an offer he couldn't refuse, like a widow that's fairly wealthy, young, attractive, and owned a brewing business that was in Hollowfell. Hollowfell.
Yes. Holofell.
Quad pluses, quad negatives. He's too smart by half sometimes. Yes. um. So this is kind of like balled into one. The troop says, "Hey, we're gonna be throwing Ben's going away party, and we're gonna be doing Quad's 12th birthday, all in one as a celebration." Um. So we cut to like Trip giving him a belt knife, Shandy giving Quath a cloak that she made with pockets.
So many
Uh,
pockets.
Parents gave him a lute, and Ben sang with him.
I think it's also to note that Trip gave him the knife because he said that every young boy should have a toy that he can get hurt with.
Yes,
No one questioned him.
this is who Trip is. So Ben opens a special keg of mead for the occasion, tasting the way Quoth felt, which is sweet, bitter, and sullen. I believe his parents wrote a song called "The Ballad of Ben Brewer Supreme" as a going away gift
Yes.
as well. Thought
And
that
he
was
did it
awfully
with the
sweet.
most respect and dour tones. Just give it the ballad.
Um, I thought this part was really funny. When Shanty was trying to
Oh, yes.
proposition Ben with the dance, he refused and literally turned beet red.
And then she's like, come on. I've been practicing for so long, but we can't do it in public. You have to come to my wagon. And he went.
Well, I mean, I think it's stated she dragged him to the tent after she was like being all pouty. Like,
Hey.
listen, I learned this dance for you. You're coming whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So the whole troop is cheering as Ben is getting dragged into this tent.
Yes, and then Trip and Terran do a mock sword fight, which is insane. Trip he broke his sword, he's hiding under a lady's dress, he starts fencing with a sausage, and everyone's like terrified by the fact that he has not actually broken his neck. I want to see someone fence with a sausage. Trip sounds like a trip.
Trip is a trip. And The Lay of Sir Savian Trolliard, written by Ilian, was sang shortly after. In the tone of the mother and father's voice, I believe it was described they have perfectly enmeshed counter harmonies. So I kind of like had a picture of it in my head how it should sound, and I think it was stated that it brought everyone to tears.
Yes.
The sword fight, film TV adaptation of the sword fight.
Well, we may get it because it's still holding true. The person who's doing the screenplay and the music for it is Lin-Manuel Miranda, so we very well might get the sausage fight.
I would love that.
I would love it.
So after this kind of like sad song is sang, we have the troop that's chanting for Lanray. And begrudgingly, the father obliges, giving out the intro to the song and then slyly tucking his lute away.
Yes. Like, you're not getting any more. Suckers.
And I think Ben dances with Quath's mother, providing like a contrast. I think Quoth took note of it. It's like an elder wise man dancing with a young beautiful woman that's like vibrant in her youth, and they shared a
Yeah, I
tender
can just
goodbye.
read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Afterward, Ben danced with my mother, his steps sure and stately. I was struck by how beautiful they looked together. Ben, old, grey, and portly, with a lined face and a half-burned eyebrows. My mother, slender, fresh, and bright, pale and smooth-skinned in the firelight. They complemented each other by contrast. I ached knowing I may never see them together again.
Yeah, my notes don't do that justice.
Okay, I got the book in front of me. I can quote whatever we need. I'm your Vanna.
And last present, right? So
Yes.
night fades away. We get a cut scene into Quoth waking up the next morning with a book with a kind of note that was blowing in the wind. And what does it say on the note?
It's a copy of Rhetoric and Logic, which is one
Yes.
of Ben's books that Kavoth hates. He absolutely hates it, but the note says, Kavoth, defend yourself well at the university. Make me proud. Remember your father's song. Be wary of folly. Your friend, Abinthy.
Name drop, folly. Remember the sword?
Yeah,
What was its name?
folly.
There's something else going on here.
Yes, there's quite a bit going on here. Remember your father's song? Ben has had an obsession with this.
So, that brings us to the head of chapter 16.
Oh, buckle up, buttercups. It's about to get brutal.
I'm gonna strap in. I'm gonna get some water.
I'm opening my seltzer.
Yeah, it's right on my desk. I don't have to go anywhere. But wow. Um. So
So,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I remember the first time I read this chapter and how it wrecked me. I don't know about you. I was not expecting that.
I think this chapter is just a long series of events that wreck you.
It's
Afterwards.
just horrible.
We begin with kind of measures to make the wound heal a little bit, right? Like the parents invite new people to the troop. And kind of like usher Koth to learn new skills so that he's not to mope. Trip teaches him how to jape and tumble. Shandy teaches half a dozen courtly dances. Taryn taught swordplay basics.
His mother taught noble titles and who ranked above who and made a very, very vulgar song that they were never allowed to say in front of his father.
See, that escaped my notes. Forgot that one.
That one was fun.
And I believe she says, "Do you want to get by or do you want to make me proud?" And I thought that was like a good
Yes.
little flavor to add to it. Also mentions that he rode with his father more and more and was taught
Yes.
formal training of stage, like the intricacies of using an accent and using your posture to convey character as well.
Yes, he was finally, like, instead of just having, I believe he put it as the tidbits he had picked up along the way, now he was getting a formal education in theatre.
Mm-hmm. And so after this kind of moment with his mother, we get to the point where there's a downed tree that lay on the path, prompting the troop to stop. The mother made a sly comment to the father, dismissing Koth to look. This is where it's an armful of sage. He had to look for something else before.
Yes.
So, in my notes, I wrote, "Insatiable Mr. Sheffield."
Insatiable, Mr. Zaffiel! Oh my god!
um, so Koth recounts that he hoped that they
I'll read this.
spent.
It is such a hard. I can read this. I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope they spent those last few hours well. I hope they didn't waste them on mindless tasks, kindling the evening fire and cutting vegetables for dinner. I hope they sang together, as they so often did. I hope they retired to our wagon and spent time in each other's arms. I hope they lay near each other afterwards and spoke softly of small things. I hope they were together, busy with loving each other, until the end came. It is a small hope, and pointless, really. They are just as dead either way. Still, I hope.
Bah.
You get the trauma train going!
I think I should put on my like dark face for the rest of this because that's that's
Oh,
what's
hey,
coming
twinsies!
from now on.
Ugh. Oh, it makes my stomach turn.
This is where we're gonna sit for the rest of this because it is terrible. Um, so it picks up. I just lost my notes. Where Cloth is coming back, seeing kind of like plumes of smoke through the forest, right? And he's like coughing and wiping his tears from his eyes from the thickness of the black smoke. Um,
Yeah.
okay, I'm almost back to it. I went a little bit too far down. Um, so we get to the point where these are the last carefree hours of his life, and this is where one would argue that the real story begins. Um, so he comes back to see Trip's tent collapse, Terran's body lying by his wagon, sword broken, and a leg twisted in an unnatural way, with his bone, the white of his bone showing from the unnatural twist. Um, Also, this kind of like left Claw thinking in deep shock. I believe he says it's like thinking through syrup as
Yes.
he kind of like comes to Shandy's body and kind of like prods around in the cooking pot.
And finds potatoes.
Emergency puppies are needed.
We need
Please.
emergency puppies. Get in here. Go, get over here.
There was ever a time, it's now.
Yes.
So also this is where it's mentioned where the flames are tinged with blue. So what does that say? Chandrian, right?
Yes, it's also mentioned in the next paragraph that the iron bands that are reinforcing the wheel literally crumbled and turned into rust at his touch.
And the wood splintered into rot as well.
Yes.
So this is kind of three of the signs that we talked about, right?
Yes, we've talked about this. That doesn't make it easier.
Trip rolled sevens for the last time. So, peering around the corner of Shandy's wagon, Claw saw several unfamiliar men and women sitting around his parents' fire. Claw, actually, it goes into describing a man with a sword, everything about the man cold and sharp, white except his eyes, black like a goat's eyes, and Cinder, as called by a bald man with a gray beard at the fire.
Yes. So now we have the actual formulation of what Ben said earlier about names have power. His couple's father has been trying to tell the story of Lanre, and in that is the Chandrian, and now it has been snuffed out by the actual Chandrian. They are not a ghost story.
So, we come to Cinder kind of approaching Cloth, moving almost like Mercury would.
Very fluid.
Unnatural, to say the least.
Yes.
Um,
Liquid, fluid.
and he...
And
Go ahead.
and Mercury is poison, so again, we also have that illusion.
Yeah.
It makes you go insane.
It's definitely hard-hitting with the subtleties that he throws in here. Someone's parents have been singing entirely the wrong sorts of songs. Yes. We get to the point where Cinder kind of gets on eye level with Cloth and asks his name. And Cinder feigns pity, which quickly turns into a wicked smile, asking where his parents were, and stating exactly what Aller said here.
Yep.
A shadow-hued man kind of pipes up in the back and warns Cinder that he's approaching his displeasure, and instructs Cinder to send Koth to a soft and painless blanket of sleep, where he kind of almost chokes on the last word, right?
Yes, this is also it's from this that I actually made a note that we can allude that they took their time with Terran, especially with his leg at the awkward angle. It can be argued that they likely tortured him.
Yeah. And it also made me admire Terran a little bit more, is like, Terran did not care. Like, obviously, he probably heard stories about Chandrian, but he was willing to lay down his life to, protect the troop. And that makes Terran an all the more admirable character to me. So we get to the point where Cinder scoffs at Haliax, saying he's as good as a watcher, and Haliax retorts that you seem to forget our purpose, or does your purpose differ from my own, he propositions. And this seemed to set Cinder quickly straight, and kind of like fall into line, but Cinder was reminded of their relationship further by saying, Haliax says, Cinder is just a tool in his hands, nothing more. And I believe Cinder tries to get, but 2 words out, and in all caps, it's Ferula, right?
Mine's not all caps, it's italics, but that could just be a difference in printing.
Okay, that's probably it. So, yes, you get the sense that Haliax is the big bad here. He is the boss. So, upon hearing this word, Cinder is racked with pain and forced to say that he is a tool in Haliax's hand, in gasping pain. And Haliax replies with, "Who keeps you safe from the Emir? The singers, the Scythi?
Scythi.
Scythi. From all that would harm you in the world." Haliax states he's glad that he actually came today when the others are indulging way too much in cruelties and forgetting what they seek. So it's kind of scary to think that Haliax is like the head of reason here between the whole group.
It's a terrifying idea. Truly is.
And all of their attention kind of went to the sky all at once. And Haliax just kind of blurts out, "They come." And he creates this kind of like blooming shadow around him where the others quickly step into and kind of sink into like quicksand and disappear, right?
Yes.
And none of them look back at Quoth except for, guess who?
Cinda.
Edgy Boy.
Oh yeah.
And in the 10th edition, we have a beautiful drawing of what Cinder looks like. You know, I should take some pictures of these and put them up at points. But yeah, it's he's unsettling to say the least. Very unhinged look in his eye.
Most hinged of men.
So shortly after this, Cloth went futilely around checking everybody's body for pulses, right? The way Ben told him.
And finds none.
And he kind of goes back to his parents' bed, and next to his father's loot, he's lighting a candle with, I quoted, real fire. So clean fire, I guess.
Yes.
And what happens next? It is basically he wakes up in an inferno around him because the candles set the caravan on fire.
Yes.
As if things weren't bad enough, right?
Yes. And he takes Ben's book and his father's loot. And he goes.
He goes and he begins to play his father's lute until his fingers bled, trying not to remember until he fell asleep. And this is where Trauma Alert begins and ends for chapter 16. But it keeps on going.
Oh, we're on the express train. It's not gonna get better.
So chapter 17 kind of snaps us back, boom, back into present day, where Bast is pretty much in tears, right? He has them hanging in his eyes, and Quoth instructs Bast on what to do while Quoth is gonna be off getting firewood for the night, and Bast is kind of like left to his devices to make conversation with Chronicler, and states that Coat has been brooding for the past few months, actually. And when Bast heard that Chronicler was here, he actually was excited.
Yes.
And Bast kind of like gives his formal apology to Chronicler this time, and Chronicler gives his formal apology, and they shake hands. And this is where it's revealed that it's only mentioned very subtly, but there's a bruise on Bast's hand where Coat had gripped him. And Bast says he's stronger than he looks.
Yes, but then we get a scene where it's Kvoth outside, and he's loading the wheelbarrow with firewood, and he breaks. He just hides his head in his hands and weeps, and is just taken over by waves of heavy, silent sobbing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe like this is like where you get the kind of like masculine breakdown of being engrossed in tasks, right?
Yes.
Where he's acting machine like, like just kind of like dragging these two logs 2 by 2, putting them in a wheelbarrow, and he just does it slower and slower, kind of like a machine would, gears get gunked up and break down, and he just is finally left to feel the hurt of the situation.
Yes. And I mean, he's also reliving it, and he hasn't spoken this out loud in so long. Grief has a way of creeping up with you on that. It can be dormant for years, and then you just bring up one part of a story, and you're a wreck again. That's how it goes.
And we get into that at the beginning of next chapter, right? Like the the gates, so to say, the 4 doors of the mind.
Yes.
So that segues perfectly. So the first door we have is sleep, creating distance and a retreat or passing time. Um, the second gate is forgetting. Some wounds are too deep to heal, and some memories are just pain. Time only heals most wounds, the rest are hidden behind this door. The third is the door of madness. Mind is dealt such a blow that it hides itself in its insanity to escape the pain, and the mind must leave reality behind. And then the fourth door is death itself. Nothing can hurt us after we're dead. ... Or so we've been told.
Yes. And I mean, if that just gives you a mindset to what what the next 2 chapters are going to be. Whew.
And with that line, it kind of like gave me some eerie vibes. Like, what's gonna happen? Like what could possibly happen in this whole story? So I believe death is going to be a centric theme from now on.
I'm pretty sure it is. I would say this would be a very interesting notion if it was a 4-book series to be like each book a different door, but
Right?
yet to be, I think.
I thought the same thing too. I was like, that's actually, like there's a lot of like method to the madness here. God damn it! I did a dad pun because of the door.
Yes, but
Didn't
then we
mean to.
also have the 3rd book. It's called The Doors of Stone.
I'm
So,
shaking my head.
doors. Doors are a thing. Beware every door. Never trust a door.
Always choose left though. Never choose right.
Always choose right, never choose left.
Oh God. So,
One of us always lies, the other always tells the truth.
which one's lying?
Who?
Exactly. So, Koth kind of mentioned that he ushered most through the second door to become numb, and it's mentioned partially for the time being because obviously previous chapter, right? Um, Quoth had a Quoth has a fever dream, kind of remembering the teachings of the huntsman Lacklith.
Yes.
That teeters into a discussion of knots by Abinthy, and then back to his father talking about waystones, and switching back to Ben talking about the power being in them, and then there was like a double circle of the waystones around Quoth, and one with an arched waystone that he reached out to touch, and then bam, he was awoken. So
Yes, but at the very least,
symbology
Lacklith was giving him some solid survival advice.
for right now. And I kind of think this paragraph has a lot more meaning than my brain can put together. Um, it's very significant, and I think if you broke this down analytically, getting references from further in the books, I think you'll see there's a lot more between these lines.
But for the sake of we have people who have reading this for the first time, we
Well,
can't really go
I
into
can't
that.
remember them, so I'm not spoiling anybody.
By the way,
Audibly blinks.
blink, blink. It's okay. We'll come back to it again and just be like, what?
Yeah, we'll highlight that one on the dock. Kind of reminds me of flashing before your eyes. Yeah.
Nope. And I mean, he does take the remembrances of Lacklith well, and he starts collecting firewood, getting rabbits, making snares, foraging. Like, he's actually not doing that bad.
Thank you,
Like, you
Lacklith.
expect a kid to die like this.
Thank you,
He's
Lacklith.
just like, yep, cool.
Then it kind of like cuts to him finding water in a makeshift shelter where he was reminded of his hunger after testing the water, right? Hold on. Like, there is a theory that is your brain desperately trying to find the right information for the situation? Of course, yes. That could also fit right in there. And this is like where I was like, no, it catches a rabbit, right? But cuts it loose, like after thinking of blood. Which I could understand,
Yeah.
right? Trauma City. But, you know, you gotta live. You're the main character.
Well, we know he lives.
Right.
Oh, that's
so
gonna be at the end.
a second rabbit is caught, and this one he rigs to kill right away. And I think that was the kind of like trigger for him, is that he didn't want to end up killing a live thing at the time.
He doesn't want to see the death.
Right. And he returns to the Greystone that he found and makes a shelter. And I thought this was kind of poignant to mention. A shelter for his loot. Not for himself, for his loot.
I mean, I get that. I have a cello. I would probably make the shelter for the cello before me.
I haven't heard you play cello before. I want to hear you play cello.
Yeah, I've played cello for like over 20 years.
I want to hear. I thought we were friends.
Yeah, no. I have a beautiful, like, concert level cello.
I love cellos. I love their sounds. And I know you told me this before, but like I never asked you to play for me. So that's going to be in the future.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on
If
it.
I can get that thing tuned, we'll do it.
Yeah. So that brings us to the head here of chapter 19. We get to where Quoth is kind of like feeling like an automaton, performing tasks needed for survival hollowly. And the only notice he took of his surroundings was because of the rain, because he couldn't play the lute in the rain. So you get the feeling that he is like very, very attached to this last piece that he has of his parents. And I believe it's mentioned that their fingers have, both of their fingers have gone over the fretboard more times than he could count, right? And that's kind of like his figurehead that he has to remember his parents, is this lute.
Yes. No, that is literally like, it's his life. It's everything prior to this.
Mm-hmm. And we get to the point where it's kind of like progressing in months at a time now, right? Like, he's getting calluses after the first month of playing. He played songs he knew. He played songs he half remembered and made up the rest. And then he made up his own songs. He even gets deeper into this by saying he played the feeling of things like warm grass or cool breeze. And by the second month, he could play things nearly as easily as seeing them. By the third month, he looked inside for things to play, like riding in the wagon with Ben. And he goes to mention that it hurt like tender fingers on a lute string. I bled a bit and hoped that I would callous soon.
Yeah, let's take a drink.
Are we having trauma sips?
I think that we might need trauma sippies.
So, we get to the point where it's nearing the end of summer here. In a span, one of the strings broke, and in a span, he said he was playing nearly as good with 6 strings as he did with 7. Then a second string broke, and then shortly after that, a third string broke. And he states that after trying for half a day, he realized that 3 strings were too many. Thank you for the hydrate, Owler.
Thank you, thank you.
So, at the point of 3 strings breaking on the lute, this is actually what compels him to walk south, right? Um, Autumn is also turning, and the weather, he heard, is better in the south during the winter months. So that is his reasoning as to why he's going. He passes some inns, some small towns, stopping for water, not always finding it. Sometimes he would go days without drinking. Um, it's mentioned that he finds himself more akin to a wild animal than a boy when he found himself hiding on large roads until he found that he could pass on the large roads while being wholly ignored by everyone.
Yes. Except, well, one duo.
Right. And I wrote their names down a little bit later.
Hold on. Seth and Jake.
There we go. So Seth is the man, right? The man.
Yes.
Seth kind of offers him bread and kindness and asks if he played the lute. But it's broken, obviously. So the old man kind of says, "Then we'll just have to entertain you instead." And they sang Tinker Tanner. And I thought this was funny. They say it's a song older than God.
Yes.
So even in these like dark times, there's like little snippets that kind of make you chuckle, and I think that's golden. Like, thank you for allowing me to keep my sanity through these chapters.
Yes, and it's just kind of funny the way that Seth talks because he's asked it because Kavoth is obviously not talking, so he's like, "Are you deaf, boy?"
Yeah, and he states
As deaf as
deef, right?
deaf. Are
Yeah.
you deaf?
Are you deef, boy?
I just love it. Are you deaf? Because the only way I can put that is like a heavy Scottish accent.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. What else would it be?
I don't know.
Are you deef, boy?
Are you deaf? That's too aggressive. He was nice. He was nice.
I have to put that through like a Shrek TTS and see if it checks out. Wait till Kira's streaming.
She actually is streaming.
Oh my god, I can't do it right now. Should I do it right now? I can multitask.
This is your choice.
Oh yeah, deaf boy. So, all kidding aside, we get to the 20th chapter. I think we're moving pretty well, right?
We are moving pretty well. I'm actually a little shocked.
And I'm actually hitting all my notes too, so this is pretty good. I think we're in a good groove here.
Hell yeah.
So they arrived at a city, and he says that he needs to change his lute strings, right? To Seth and Jake. Seth and Jake made a comment about bringing squash, the best butter, is it butter squash? Best butter squash this side of the Eld back to your mother. I could just picture that in a Scottish accent.
Yes, and then they realize when they see his face of, oh
Yeah.
shit.
And this is where they kind of get concerned. And they say, we're going to be selling things until sundown, and offered Cloth to come back with them. And he's like, you will come back, right? And that's when Koth kind of takes off into the city of Tarbean, and just books it. It's mentioned that this city is large enough to not be able to walk one end to the other in a single day.
It's big.
That's huge.
The way I always thought of it is a bit like London, even though I've never been there. Like, I kind of imagined it, for some
Just
odd
like
reason, my head is
vast.
always goes like, yeah, it just kind of reminds me of like, you know, like a kind of, I want to say like, I just keep thinking about like historical like not reenactments, but historical movies and things where they have like Cheapside up and it's just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I know
So
you're a Londoner. You live in Tarbean. Congratulations.
they mentioned it smelled like what? It was like piss and something.
Um. Oh shoot, what is it? It was piss, oil, and body odor.
What a combo. What a combo.
Yum yum.
So after this kind of like brief description of the city, and I believe he gets into it later, and I'll probably touch on it in my notes about like more qualities of the city. But shortly after Quoth runs away, pretty accurate for London too. Amazing.
So, bro,
Um,
I love the Moobot. It's just HTTPS the mini Mansa.
why did? Oh my god! It just gets worse and worse.
It's fine. I like the fact that apparently on my own website without even a .com.
You're that big. Holy shit.
I am that big. I am the biggest. Clearly. My ego's
All
already
right,
going to
let
my
me
head.
let me see if that actually works. It's the what, second time, third time I'm changing it.
That's okay.
You're that big. You are huge. Can you make
I am.
yourself huge? Do
Oh,
you have
yeah.
enough magic to do that?
Yeah, I could do that.
Oh my god.
I can do that.
That's kind of terrifying.
Hello.
Me say fee fi fo fum.
Fee, fi, fo, fum.
That's cool, watch out. She's behind. That actually works out perfectly. It looked like you phased behind the bar.
Okay,
There's a
I'm done
dimensional
playing.
door in the bar.
I gotta keep humor. I gotta keep humor.
But I think that worked. Let me see. Bam.
There you go.
Perfect. So, getting back into it, Koth kind of like takes off and is as soon as he rounds a corner is immediately just kind of like pressed against the wall by three boys
Yes.
and roughed up by one of them that's stated was twice his size, named Pike. Pike kind of like takes out his loot after elbowing him, I believe. One of the boys invokes the name of Telu and says, in response, Pike says, Telu and his great glowing penis can piss all over me if that thing isn't worth 20 talents.
Yes.
I had to write that one down. That's amazing.
It was a great quote, and you're just like, oh no.
So, second boy chimes in, saying not to talk about Telu like that. I believe his name was Lin. The other boy and Lin get into a scuffle, and this is where Koth kind of like sees his moment to escape the situation. So he makes a break for the loot that is in Pike's hands, but is immediately met with resistance. He kind of like pulls on the loot, and Pike just comes to like a full stand up and kind of looms over Koth.
Yes.
So this is when they kind of get into a little bit of a scuffle where Cloth kind of claws at Pike's face, but Pike has been in many fights before and lives on these streets, so he kind of like nimbly avoids Cloth's kind of claw, and this is when Cloth gets pushed up against the wall and just kind of goes feral and bites Pike's shoulder, right? And this subsequently frees him from Pike's grasp, and Pike just instinctively reacts and rattles him against the wall twice, and then throwing him to the ground by his throat. Okami's asking why he's cut out there. Well,
Have you seen this hound?
have you seen him? He's missing.
He went out for milk and hasn't come home yet.
Literally. We're getting milk cartons made with his face on it. It's been too long. He's gone. Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's been gone way too long. And all we have left is this dumb cardboard cutout and this note that he left.
Yeah.
He's left the tavern all dusty. He stood me up. I had to have Minnie help me clean up the dust bunnies.
Hell yeah,
And
do you realize how much fire that took?
because we don't clean with water, we clean with fire.
Absolutely.
I
What
can tell
could
you
go
how many
wrong lighting
times
fire
the
to a tavern?
bar almost burnt down, Minnie. I know this isn't the Copper Hounds, but I like to keep it at least a little bit in check.
Look, do you realize how you had to break me out of prison to be here again? I'm just saying.
I would do it again, too.
Well, you're gonna have to do it again next week. Yeah.
I will continually do it, as long as they don't catch on.
Ah, you'll be fine.
But, dust bunnies will be cleansed in the eternal fires. They have been
And the
cleansed.
eternal fires.
They've met the last door.
Ah!
Pretty sure they speed ran the doors. So, where were we at? We were at the fight scene, right?
Yes, he just bit his shoulder, and the demon child is horrible.
I gotta go to work. I just want to try to catch the stream before work. Much sad. Oh, Okami, it's alright. I'm just glad you got here in time to catch any of it, to be honest. We will be doing these every Thursday at 6 p.m., so feel free to come back. I know your work schedule is probably around the same time.
Right.
God damn it, Tots.
It's just not the time for nut.
It's not the time for nutting.
Oh, hey, Jericho, welcome.
Jikaro? Jikaro? Hello?
Yay.
Welcome. It's okay. I was just saying to Okami, I'm just glad you got to stop by. We do have 7 chapters left, so we're gonna be going for a little bit while longer. Basically, with this fight scene that happens, it's not much of a fight. Pretty much, Koth gets the shit kicked out of him. He kind of like has an instant blackout after being thrown to the ground by his throat, and it brings him back to thoughts of his parents. He's rudely woken up by getting kicks to the kidney. He tried to cover the loot from any further damage and is further kicked in the stomach twice until the shitty watch is what I call them, the city watch, because they come by after hearing that Quas screams for help, and they state, if you hadn't sounded like a girl, I wouldn't have run all this way. And he just kind of like loots Quas' pockets and took the little money that Quoth had left. So this is what you get from the shitty watch in a fantasy setting, right?
Yeah, this is pretty typical. But it was like, nope, you can't. It's like your life was worth me having drinks for a night. This wasn't even worth it, but I guess you're alive. Meanwhile, here's this young boy who's beaten half to death on the ground and no sympathy, no morality whatsoever. So, welcome to the city of Tarbeen.
Great first day being in the city. First couple of hours, actually, being in the city of Tarbeen.
Yes, but the problem is because he was out and unconscious for so long, he looks around and realizes that it's already twilight. So he goes fleeing back to try and find Seth and Jake, thinking of warm bread and butter and just someplace to sleep, someplace nice that isn't here, isn't that. And he makes it all the way back to the square, and he's struggling to find the bookshop that they parked in front of. And when he gets there, he realizes they're gone, and he has no way of finding them.
So I think this is the moment where like Cloth is like, oh shit, like this is what being in the city alone is like. Maybe I should go back with the farmer. And he kind of panics, goes back, they're not there. So Cloth is like, well, I guess I'm living this life now, right? It's kind of like another kind of like, if things weren't already bad, it's getting worse.
Yeah, and it's going to keep getting worse. So he just pretty much found some empty crates in an alley and curled up behind them and tried to sleep. And the last line of the entire chapter is, "That was the first night of nearly 3 years I spent in Tarbine." 3 years.
Amazing. So this is kind of like setting the tone for the city life, right? Like this was the first day.
Yes.
So chapter 21, I don't have too many notes for. I have a few bullet points. It was nearly a month before he tried his hand at stealing. He didn't have great luck with. I think he states something about getting hit by a butcher where it was like I forget how hard he said that he was hit, but basically he got clocked by a butcher after trying to steal the butcher's purse in his apron. Got caught with his hands in his apron. And he goes on to mention that he didn't have too much luck with begging, but he did find two other beggars that he's seen kind of excited, and they took off towards a basement where this is where his sixth sense kind of like kicked in, and he was like, oh, I shouldn't be this excited to go down into a basement that I have no idea what's on the other side. But he sees the two kids emerging with bread, and I believe he passes another girl going on the way down.
Yes.
And he goes down to find some boys that are tethered to cots. And again, like the alarms go off in his brain, and then he realizes what the situation actually is. The man offers Cloth some bread if he carries water for him. Tanny, the boy in the cot, alerted the man of Cloth's presence, and that's why the boy was kind of screaming in the first place.
And his name is Trappist.
Trappist is the man, that's right. He's described as less than 40, walks around in his bare feet, and has very tattered old robes. Does mention the Duke of Gibeah, yes. Who is basically the Marquis de Sade.
De Sade.
De Sade. Marquis de Sade.
Yes, who was a sadist.
So, this kind of served as a seldom last respite for Cloth over the times to come. In further, it was, he states it's almost like a home he could come back to, almost.
Yes, but at least if there's one place in Tarbine that he could go that he would not be spit on and be treated like a person instead of just a bug, he could go here.
And I also believe it's stated that Trappist tends to palsied, crippled, catatonic, and the mad children that are kind of like just thrown out by society.
Completely thrown out, and if he wasn't there, there's those ones that if he left them alone, they would hurt themselves, or ones that if he left them alone, they would likely hurt others.
Yes. Perfect. See, you always dot my I's and cross my T's.
That's what I do.
Bringing it up to chapter 22. Beep, 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 beep.
This is a bigger chapter.
Yeah, I do have some good notes for this one. So we get into his life in Tarbine, where he learns the first few months the best restaurants, how fast food goes rotten, obviously by experimentation.
Yes.
where the Temple of Telu is. He learned how to hide, the ins and outs of the alleys in Tarbine. Learned of Tarbine, the other sectors, the Downings, Drover Court, the Wash, Middletown, Talos, Tunning, Dockside, the Tarway, and Seeming Lane. Look at that. Got them all. Um, it was like the ocean, practically, though two pieces were waterside and hillside, effectively divided into the poor and the rich. What? Hush, hush. Yes,
Hush,
exactly.
hush, hush.
um, so it, I believe it's kind of like around the time of midwinter pageantry, right?
Yes, and it brings him back to memories of home because his family used to be the ones that helped with this pageantry. They were in a city for it.
Mm-hmm. And what was his father's role?
Oh, he was the king of demons. Goodness, what is his name?
Incanus.
Incanus.
Yeah. And basically, this is like a whole citywide spectacle where the whole city kind of takes place in it. Um, People dress up as demons, and then one person dresses up as Telu with a silver mask. And at the mere mention of Telu's name, the demons must flee, right? But it's a little more dangerous on the poor side of the city, right? On water side.
It is. And we get this and some ideas from it just because they had he witnesses them on the more affluent side, and they're like sneaking up to go after one of them and like steals a hat, and the woman turns around and is like, in Taylor's name, give that back, and they drop the hat, and they're doing fine, and even Kovath remarks about the fact that they are being very, very nice.
Polite, right?
They are very polite demons, yes.
It was kind of like a spectacle to be enjoyed on the hillside.
Mhm.
So this is the last day of high mourning, so the seventh day. I believe it's mentioned that Quoth kind of like eyes this up as the perfect day to go up to hillside and beg. And he eyes up a woman that looks fair, reasonable, to go up to, and he does so, and she offers a silver penny. And I believe she says something along the lines of "God help you" or something like that, right?
Can you help you?
Taylor help you.
And she thinks it's just like pocket change, but for him, that's enough to sleep indoors a month and fill his belly. Like, it is a huge deal, and he actually starts crying. Like, this is a ton of money to him.
Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, we get the shopkeepers kind of like talking to the guards after seeing this, and they get alerted to Cost's presence. And as soon as he makes eye contact with the guard, he takes off running. He
But he
books it.
doesn't know it. He doesn't know this area of the city very well.
No. And as Koth kind of zigs and zags through alleyways, he makes for a dead end. And of course, he's trying to climb up this dead end, and one of the guard just catches his ankle as he's hauling himself up and pulls him down, where he pretty much gets his brain jarred, right?
He gets beaten to within an inch of his life. This grown man is beating this beggar boy with a club and doesn't stop.
And to top it all off, he ends it with like 2 kicks, right?
Yes, which injures something internally.
Mm-hmm. And if that wasn't bad enough, Quoth wakes up from his unconscious beating, and the coin that he was so graciously given is gone.
And it's saying that his hands were so numb from the cold, but he was sifting through the grey snow to try and find it, even though part of him was aware that even if he felt it or had it in his hands were so numb he'd never know.
He'd never know. And that's sad in itself. So after collecting himself and trying to remain conscious, he kind of hobbles back, but falls in the snow, and he kind of mentions that it feels strangely comfortable. Um, I'm sure it was more elegant than what I put down. But he was awoken by two strangers, and it's described that he felt like a strange warmth around him. And there are two demons standing over him. The two demons that were actually seen earlier with the two townsfolk, the man and his cane and lifting up the woman. Um, their names are given to us, Garrick and Holly. They help Koth to consciousness, kind of like, and to his feet by massaging his limbs to, get them back to, like, not being so numb and working condition. And Garrick kind of tells him not to lie down again and offers a silver talent instead of a silver penny this time.
Which is
So,
that shit's amounts of money.
yeah.
Rebecca.
And gets gloves to boot, right? Like he gives him his gloves, and the demons kind of take off running into the night. And
And that's because the procession that's going
yes,
to be tracking them down is like right behind them. It's like they have to go, but the man playing Incarnus, the same person that his father played, gives him a silver talon and is trying to keep him alive the best he can.
and I think it's like oddly ironic. The demons are the ones that are helping this poor boy when the
Yes,
shit
and the
the
people
shitty
are beating the
watch
shit out of
just
him.
beat the shit out of him for the second time. So
Yes. And it doesn't get better.
So Koth kind of like walks for warmth to the first inn he could find and startles two girls in the back alley. He offers to pay, and one of the girls comes back with a blanket and a small solid purse and offers a corner by the fire, kind of like trying to take Koth's arm. And he just has a natural reaction and recoil, as one would after being in the city, for 3 months now and just having the shittiest time of his life with almost every person he comes into contact with. And he just kind of like books it again away from the girls. He made for the hidden place where he kind of goes through what was under the blanket, which is a flask of spiced wine, a loaf of fresh bread, and a turkey breast bigger than his fist. He nestled up near the chimney where the brick was, so he could get some warmth on his body. But that is where the chapter ends.
Yes. And he. So for chapter. Do you want me to go ahead?
Mhm.
So, chapter 23, we pick up pretty much the next morning. He's still in his hiding place, and his body is practically too stiff to move from the beating. And he still had a little food and a little wine, and he's doing his best. But he isn't doing good. And he ends up by evening with a fever, and the fever isn't breaking. So, what he ends up doing is he makes it off the rooftops and he goes to Trappist.
Kind of like
And
falling down the stairs as he enters Trappist's
yes,
basement.
and he was there for days. He's not exactly sure how long, but whatever money that he had left was used to buy medicine to try and get his fever down. And he thankfully gets out of it, but then it goes into, well, a very long-winded story about the burning wheel. Which, I'm not gonna lie, is my least favorite story that is put through in this book.
I mean, this is okay. So like, I feel like this is here for a reason, right? Like, I think it's everybody's least favorite part, but like, yes, this is the creation myth. Um,
Very Zeus-ish, in a way.
yes, like
Like with the
I
whole, you have to have hospitality.
I am the son of myself and the father of myself.
Yes.
Like it. I don't know like how much you want me to go into this. I took some good notes about it.
Oh, go
Um,
right ahead. I didn't like it that much. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it.
okay. So it began by telling a story that took place long ago. Trappist kind of says like 400 years ago at first, but then he corrects himself and he's like, no, thousands of years ago. Of demons and examples of demons, but the worst of all was Incarnus, the swallowing darkness. It said that scorpions that stung him died of the corruption that they touched. So Telu made man to be just, but they were few and far between. Lord Telu felt no desire to aid man because of their wickedness. Pure of heart and spirit, there was a woman named Periel. This woman only prayed for others, never asking for herself. So Telu came to Periel in a dream and states that everyone else in the world is wicked but you. He prayed for your neighbor and her husband, but Telu offers that they deserve the punishment they deserve each other. And he goes into what's actually going on with those two. It's pretty much like the cheating wife and then the drunk abusive husband, right? Dynamic. And she goes in to say it's not their fault that the world is full of hard choices, hunger, and loneliness. Telu was touched by this and in turn touched his hand to her heart. And this kind of has like a little allusion to like a golden bell was rung within her. Her saying that she would help them if she could, and Telu replied, "You shall." She awoke pregnant and in 3 months gave birth to a boy named Menda. He learned to crawl on the first day and learned to walk in 2 days.
It's literally Hermes.
100%.
Literally, we came out of the womb and went, we can improve our cattle production.
So, the first day of the seventh span, word got out, and her neighbors came to her house kind of like in an angry mob fashion. They thought that she may have lain with a demon. And the smith that led them, named Rengan, had proclaimed that they would burn her house down if she doesn't come out with her son. The door opens and a 17-year-old man steps out with coal black hair and eyes, and spoke in a deep tone. The boy that was known as Menda had never spoken until now. "I am not Menda, though that is what my mother called me. I am Telu." Periel stopped Telu's anger, saying that even the best dog will bite when kicked enough. So Telu was angry that this person that he had chosen was getting persecuted for no reason and kind of like harping on the wickedness that man was, but she's defending them, saying they know not what they do, they've just been kicked their whole time in life, right? The villagers still believed him to be a demon, and Telu began to speak to each villager of their hearts and their wickedness. The smith being the first one, was kind of drops his hammer in disbelief. Telu drew a line in the dirt and explained that this is the path of life, and if they should cross to his side, the smith was the first to cross and was struck 3 times with the hammer and brought to his knees in tears. After he was struck the 3rd time, he kind of leaned down to an embrace and was given a new name, and his new name was Wereth. Each person that crossed received a new name. Demons that hid within men and women fled when the hammer touched them. In the end, 7 stayed on the other side of the line. After the 3rd asking, Telu sprang to the other side himself, driving each to the ground with a mighty blow. The 4th was a demon wearing a man's skin, that he cursed his name and broke it in his hands, sending the demon to the darkness. He traveled from town to town offering the same and destroying demons. One demon eluded him. His name was Incanus, whose voice was like a knife in the minds of men. Canis was days ahead of Telu, spoiling and defiling. Canis's hands and feet were marked with cold and black frost wherever he went. Canis raised a city thinking it would slow Telu down, and so it went that he destroyed 6 more cities and fled for 6 days. But on the 7th day, Telu saved the 7th city. And Canis fell like stone, but Telu's forge hammer was shattered. Telu carried the demon's limp body to the city of Atur on the 9th day. Telu forged a great iron wheel. On the 10th morning, the wheel was done and weighed as much as 40 men. He set men to dig a pit that was 15 feet by 25 feet deep, and Incanus writhed against the wheel when placed on it. Telu rested this day and woke up the evening. Telu threw the wheel with Incanus on it onto coals burning in the pit after the demon refused Telu's path. The demon broke his arms free one at a time, and Telu flung himself upon the demon, noticing this. Telu was burning alive, but the demon's punishment was necessary. Both perished that day. Telu remarked he would come again to judge and punish if he was called in the proper ways. This was the only story that Trappist ever told, and Quoth had his suspicions that Trappist may have been a Tellan priest. Sorry for the long monologue, but we got through it.
Okay, it's okay. That's the best way to get through it. Congratulations, we have a creation myth. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he would be a Tenu priest.
Doesn't it though? And it's kind of justified by like staying shoeless, having their ragged robe that could have been the ash gray color that Telu priests usually wear.
Yes, but he's actually, like, you know, doing what he preaches and is caring for those around him regardless of status.
And it's kind of funny though, because like Trappist is like, I don't know any stories at first, right? And he chooses to tell this one. He's like, wait, I do know a story. So it does lead to some sneaking suspicion that he probably was a Tellan priest, but an actual good Tellan priest.
Yes, but I like the fact that they didn't just come out and say, like, oh, he was a Telu priest, because, like, how would we know? We're given a limited perspective, and it's wonderful.
I don't know where I wrote this, but I know it was mentioned that the church actually does sell demon masks too. For these pageantries.
I mean, heck yeah, you gotta merchandise.
Right? It does give a small amount of insight on how dogmatic the church is. He also stumbles over details of it, much like I am now.
Stampers, are you deaf? Are you deaf? Come on.
Meaning he only half remembers. I am half deaf. Need to get Felix in here for an Otis redeem. So that brings us after the creation myth, and I think we got that through that really quickly, even though it was like one of the
It's so long-winded,
arduous stories. And you know, creation myths are usually that long-winded and not fun to read, right?
Yes, they make you want to flop going, Noble!
Unless they're
Please,
Sumerian.
Sumerian do be kind of cool.
But yeah, that's the gist of it. And we get to another short and sweet chapter. And I love that the book is written like this. Like, you go from like a totally long-winded thing to being like a short and sweet,
under
like
2 pages.
Under 2 pages chapter, and being like, oh, okay, I can read some more. Yeah. So we get to the talking of begging, trial and error, pickpocketing, lockpicking, signs of Denner addiction. So Denner, or what are they called? Sweet eaters, right?
Yes, sweet eaters.
They are kind of like the junkies in this world. You can tell what they look like or that they have an addiction because of their unnaturally white teeth.
The Deno resin makes the teeth very white. And if
And
they open their mouth and their teeth are that white, you can guarantee that they are very dangerous and they will kill you for the last shim in
for
your pocket.
whatever you have, they will take as long as it means more resin. Which is kind of scary, like considering like, you know, in fantasy settings, like teeth, like taking care of your teeth is not a usual thing. At least like in terms, fantasy is like supposed to be mimicry of like our mid-centuries, right? When we know that personal hygiene wasn't normally a valued thing. So like somebody that doesn't have yellow teeth, it's kind of like scary, like somebody just kind of like having a manic grin with like perfectly white teeth coming
God,
after
Dave!
you.
He's gone, Dave!
I've gone deaf. Help me.
Can I help you?
I don't know why it's so much funnier when you do it.
It's Dave! I'm sorry. You can pick
No,
on
it's
me all you
we're
want.
we're doing good with time, so I'm actually pretty happy with all the funny stuff we're getting in here.
Yes, but beyond the sweet eaters, what we get into is a bit of a callback to his first days in Tarbine when he is up in his hiding spot and he has a little nest egg set up with 8 iron shims, if I'm correct, or 8 iron pennies. And he is doing his best. He has a bit of bread, he has some things stocked up there. It's fairly warm, but then he hears a commotion from below and realizes that boys are beating another boy. And it's pretty much just along the same lines of what he went through. But in this situation, Kavoth makes a decision. And his decision is that he's not going to interfere because he has too much to lose.
Yeah, and it's at the point where he's literally like already acting, right? He's at the precipice of where he's going to get involved and then he decides against it.
Yes, and it was, he thought about throwing a roof tile at them and then goes into, I set down the tile. I went back to what had become my home and curled myself into the shelter of the niche underneath the overhanging roof. I twisted my blanket in my hands and clenched my teeth, trying to shut out the low rumble of conversation, punctuated by coarse laughter and quiet, hopeless sobbing from below.
Ugh. That left me with a bad taste in my mouth, that paragraph. I was just like, ugh. And you could see that it did, transitioning to chapter 25 with Quoth. Um, he states that, well, first of all, it cuts back to Chronicler and Quoth, right?
Yes.
And present time. And he states that bones mend, regrets stay with you forever when talking about the boy that was crying in the dark. So, this is something that sticks out in his memory, and he's going to remember.
Yes, and I believe it's Bast is the one that tries to be like, it's not your fault. You couldn't have done anything. It's like, I absolutely could have done something, Bast. I could have helped.
Yeah. And he's kind of like reason that Abinthy was 100 miles away and we're all creatures of habit. Like, I couldn't have gone there. I think Bast suggests that. Why didn't you go with Abinthy? And he says it's far too easy to stay in the familiar ruts we dig for ourselves. Perhaps I even viewed it as fair. My punishment for not being there to help when the Chandrian came. My punishment for not dying when I should have with the rest of my family.
Yes, and we get a hint of the fact that he's probably suffering from, a bit of PTSD and is not dealing with his grief. He should have help, he should have people around him, and instead he's just digging him this hole and pretty much just to punish himself. He's smart enough, he could have gotten out of there.
But at this point, right, it's like, did he want to? No.
He didn't have a will to live. He's like, this is going to be my tomb.
And I think that last sliver was like, that he kind of like let go of was when the farmer was gone. I think that was a very kind of like defining moment.
Like, he did run to try and get to it, but in the end, he did not get salvation. He was just stuck in the place that had literally gone, welcome to Tabine, we're gonna break everything you love.
Mm-hmm. And he said, I needed something to wake me up. And this is where he says it was years before he could be reminded to leave, dot, 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 before Scarpy.
If we remember, Scarpy was brought up by the fact that this is the person that told the chronicler where to find him in the first place.
And you get an inclination as to why and how, right? Like, defining the little bit that this chapter does of Scarpy's nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it very much makes sense that Scarpy and Chronicler are friends.
Oh, absolutely.
They have a kind of like thirst for curiosity, right? Well, I think it's a little different. I think Scarpy has a thirst for curiosity and knowing, and then Chronicler has a thirst for facts.
Yes. I would agree with you on that.
So, kicking us off to the 26th chapter. We have done really good with this. Holy shit. There's a lot of information in these chapters, especially this one. This one's going to be a big one coming up. This kind of starts out with the 3 years have passed since he's been in Tarbine now. Like, we're moving with time.
We just had a time skip, everyone. 1980s montage from hell.
Right. So, we get through all the ass kickings that were probably given here, and we get to the point where Cloth has saved up 20 iron pennies, and he calls it rainy day money, and I absolutely love that.
I can appreciate that.
So he gets word that a storyteller was at Dockside, and he hangs out at a bar called Half Mast. And he tells stories, and if he didn't know a story, he would offer a silver talent in exchange for the lack of knowledge. But we run into a problem here because Dockside's not safe. You want to explain why it's not safe?
I believe that's because isn't that where isn't there a ton of sweet eaters around there?
Well, there's that, and then there's Pike.
Yes. Who is still around, the man who initially beat the crap out of him.
Right. And this is where Pike's hidden places that, is coined by Cloth himself. I feel like if you're living in the city on the streets, you have a hidden place. That's considered your home. And one day he goes into Pike's hidden place and decides he's going to fuck it up.
I mean, justly so.
So he kind of like roots around Pike's place, drinking a bottle of beer that's in there, kind of like taking things that are littered around, and then he finds like this secret stash that I could only assume is like a little kind of like effigy to Pike's mother. So it's like a sketch like on a mast piece that was torn off of a female face. Then there's a lock of hair, a wooden
Toy
horse. Yeah.
Yeah, toy wooden horse.
And then there's one more thing that I can't remember.
And dried violets tied with a white ribbon.
Literally, Shakiro and Heller, yes. Cloth becomes
Yes.
stone cold vicious. And you get the feeling that this is what he wanted. He didn't come to like just mess up the place. He came to find like his most treasured possessions and get rid of it because that was what was done to him, right?
Yes.
They broke his lute and pretty much took the silver pegs off of it.
Yep, so they could steal those. And nope, he finds the flint and he finds flint, and he lights that shit up.
And not only does he light it up, he stands there and watches and revels it.
Oh no, he just essentially like put the sunglasses on, watching the inferno, going, "Justice has been served." I can't blame him, but it's cold.
It's revenge, right? Like, it's revenge.
Oh, it's 100% revenge, and I can't blame him for it.
So, it's mentioned that Pike caught him savoring the moment and comes at him with a makeshift kind of like dagger made of broken glass and stabs Cloth in the thigh, and he only escaped by kicking him in between the legs. And Pike kind of hobbles after him, shouting that he would kill Cloth if he ever sees him again for what he did. Rightfully so, right?
I mean, yeah.
They already had a rivalry, but this just kind of furthers it and cements it. So Cloth, remembering this kind of like little incident that was had, the promise of a free story tempted Cloth, but
Wait, we are missing a part.
wait,
Alan
what are we
is saying
missing?
this. The fact that he doused him in dregs and lit a phosphorus match on him.
I think I got to that later on, but I might be wrong.
That's literally, it's before he even gets to the half-mast with Scarpy.
Yeah.
And that was over a year ago, and he still hasn't seen Pike.
Right. So he threw drag on him, literally like was hanging above him somewhere, doused him in drag, and then threw a phosphorus match down. And in Cloth's mind, he kind of thought it would just be like the and fire, like blaze, but it was kind of like a slow burning fire that took his clothing, and it kind of like plants the seed that it was like a kind of like humorous scene where it's just Cloth over him, kind of giving him the finger as his friends are trying to slap the fire out while he's writhing on the ground. Yes, he was definitely disappointed that he didn't go boom.
Now he's back because there's a storyteller named Scarpy.
Yes, he is definitely vicious. But I don't know, can you blame him? Right?
Literally cannot blame him, it's just this is a lot. But still, he hasn't gone back there since this incident.
I think I would have acted the same way.
I don't know if I would have been in their shoes. I'd probably be dead, let's be real.
I would have set him on fire. Attempted murder, yes. But, like, in reality, he got beat to an inch of his life, too.
Indeed.
And the only keepsake of his mother and father was literally gone on the first day and he was in the city due to those people. So, like, I don't know. I'm, like, weighing my moral compass. Like, nowadays, I would not have done it in the life that we live in, but, like, if I was in a fantasy book, you bet your ass I would have did it the way he did it. Minnie audibly cringes.
I mean, I can't argue. Look at me. I can't argue.
No. I mean, we could bring up what you did, but maybe that's a story for another time.
Which thing? You have to specify, but no. Let's keep going because this is a cool part.
So, we get to kind of Cloth weighing, like, if he should go. He decides against it initially. But, eventually curiosity, right, takes over him. And the promise of a free story tempted him too much. But in the fact that he didn't, he already decided against it. He was still getting that nagging kind of question: what story would I ask for, right?
Yes.
And that was enough to make him go down to the dockside. And this like, when he thinks of what story to ask for, it surfaces a dull ache of memories, I believe it's mentioned. It wasn't as sharp as he thought they were going to be.
Yes. And there are a bunch of other kids there as well now.
Right. So he found himself dockside, watching children crowd around Scarpy. And there's kind of like a slew of like fantastical things coming out of these children's mouths. And Cloth, without thinking of it, kind of just says the name Lannery. It just falls out of his mouth. And Scarpy like hears another kid talking and is like, wait a minute. After a pelting of other mentions, Scarpy fixes his gaze on Koth, and Scarpy rhetorically asks a question: who would like to hear the story of a man who lost his eye and gained better sight?
Which is just such a cool line.
Right? And when I was reading this for the first time, I was like, okay, but like, where's the eye in all of this? Until I got to the end of it.
Yeah.
I was like thinking back to that question, and I was like, where does it fit in? And then it's just like an oh my god, okay. So this is actually the great story that we were all hoping that Trappist was gonna tell.
Yes. This is everything we wanted.
So I could go into a monologue about this if you want me to.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Monologue away, my man.
Alright. So the story is that Mir Terinial, the Shining City, Silitos was its lord, and it was a city of justice and fairness like their lord. This was a city during the Creation War, a war that lasted so long that no one could remember a time of peace. There were 8 cities that were attributed to the Empire, although it was before empires even existed. The 8 cities that remained were Bellin, Antis, Veyrit, Tenusa, Emlyn, Marilla, and Morella. Lannery was equal to a dozen older men before his teens with a sword, and Lyra was his love, who he had a passion for fiercer than fury. Lyra was terribly wise. She knew the name of things, and her voice could kill a man or still a thunderstorm. The two fought to protect Bellin, one of the cities that was their neighbors, and they had hoped for peace, and all of the other cities placed their hope in Lannery. The Block Drossen Tor fought for 3 days and 3 nights. More people died in that war than there are living in the world today. So Block means battle, so Battle of Drossen Tor. The most kind of like scene capturing thing in all of this war was Lannery fighting a beast with scales made of black iron whose breath was darkness. Lannery killed it, but ended up giving his life, and it was described that the battle was fought on a mountain of corpses. Lyra stood by Lannery's body and spoke his name. Her voice commanded him to live, but Lannery lay motionless. She grieved. She protested his name again and again. Lannery's grief was immeasurable until... Lyra's grief was immeasurable until Lannery heard her voice beyond the door of death and returned. Years passed after the battle, and rumors and stories began to surface of Lannery and Lyra going mad, ill, or being kidnapped. They were simply just not there. Lannery returned to Mir Terinial, asking Celatos to walk with him. Celatos knew that Lyra was dead at this point. He could see it written on Lanray's face. So, so during this, they have kind of like a witty back and forth chat, and it gets to the point where Celatos is kind of like fixing his gaze, and he could see plumes of smoke when he hears Lanry say, "Slancy, I bind you in the name of stone. Be still as stone. Era, I command the air. Lay laden on your tongue. Celatos, I name you. May all your powers fail you but your sight." Aleph, Ex, and Lyra were the only ones that could match Celatos' skill in names, so he was befuddled by Lanray's power laying on him. Lanray had no gift with words, his gift was with the sword. Myrtyrinial was raised as Celatos stood helpless beside Lanray and could do nothing but watch and listen as Myrtyrinial was not the only city that was destroyed, the whole empire was. Lanray says that he was accounted as one of the best of men, yet he could do all of this, and he gestures to the plumes of smoke, and that Lyra's death was at his hand. Celatos clutched mountain glass and proclaimed that Lanray was not mad, he was beyond it. Lanray had sought power, and nearly mad with grief at Lyra's death, he looked for knowledge where knowledge is better left alone, and gained at a terrible price. Celatos offered that he could kill him, but Lanray's power would always bring him back. Whether it's a day, a night, a month, a year. Lanray hoped that Celatos could kill him, and in fact may have been one of the reasons why he did what he did, but stated he is now Haliax, and no door can bar his passing. Dabs in chat.
I can't dab, I have no arms.
My God, Vinny. God damn it.
Sorry. Dab. There you go.
Thank you. I like full body dabs. We appreciate those. So this is where Celatos proclaims he was deceived by his eyes, and this will never happen again. Unable to see into Lanray's heart, and he pierced his own eye, placing a binding curse on Lanray for all of time. So this is where losing an eye for greater sight comes in.
Yes.
And I'm sure I missed a lot of juicy parts in there, so you gotta forgive me.
It's okay. This is why we asked them to read this as well.
Yeah, what's up with that, Owler?
Scorpio's just like, oh yeah, it's Haliax. Cool. He's alive. No blue flame.
Also, but like, you know how Scarpy was actually described?
I actually don't remember.
It was like tan skin and a frost beard, right?
Ah, right.
Kind of reminds me of somebody that was sitting at the fire.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. The only
Little
difference
bit.
is the tan skin. Like, that was the big difference.
Well, glamours exist.
That is true. So, yeah, there is something going on. I can't say what's going on, but like, why does Scarpy get to tell stories of Lanray?
Reasons.
Reasons. So, Scarpy kind of like, when questioned if it's true, offers that it is more or less. You have to be a bit of a liar to tell a story the right way, and too much of the truth confuses the facts. Too much of honesty makes you sound insincere. So, he kind of like, just reflexively recites words that his father has said, right? Quoth does. back to Scarpy, and this is what Scarpy's retort is. And I think Quoth mentions that they would get along.
But if he is a Chandrian, this definitely puts a tone on that.
Well, okay, the other thing is, Scarpy states that he knows that Quoth will be there if he can, and Scarpy also states one other thing. He knows one story. The pieces of the story are growing everywhere, and while eyeing Quoth, he says even here in this city of Tarbean. Dun dun dun. Exactly. Yes.
That is the appropriate emote for pretty much this entire night.
But yeah, this was the chapter that really, like, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Like, yes, it still hurts, but like there's a lot of information here that we can like form theories off of, right? We could theory craft with what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but we can't go into it yet.
Yes.
Absolutely correct, Chikuro.
It's literally day 1 in Tarbean. Year 3 in Tarbean.
Correct.
And then it's just... Oh, wrong one. Just, Scarpy?
Scarpy? Oh no.
Scarpy?
Scarpy?
It's the dark face and the confused face.
Oh no.
Oh my god. So...
I think this brings us to chapter 27, doesn't it?
It do. You want to take it away? It's a shorty.
So essentially it comes down to it's the eyes unveiled. So it takes right after the last chapter ended with the whole I'll be there if I can. I know. And he's feeling very buoyant. He's happy. He's like, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm going to have a story. He gets himself a really good meal. He gets himself an apple tart, some strong beer, a loaf of bread. Like, just generally having a nice day. And yeah, I mean, he gets 4 iron pennies for selling rags. And he's just generally having a really good night. I'm trying to think if there's really anything that. But then he has when he's sleeping, he has a memory that is brought on by the story, and he's imagining the Chandrian around the fire again and going, "Is this your parents' fire?" And imagining Cinder again. And yes, and that Haliax was real, and that all of this is real. And then again the line of someone's parents has been singing the entirely wrong kinds of songs. And it's just this entire maelstrom of they are real, there is a story to them. There is a story to them. Haliax is real. It's just this vicious circle, and it's the first time that we get him thinking of killing the Chandrian, which is the big takeaway.
Literally, like, like the realization brought a slew of questions, thoughts of revenge. How could Quoth begin? Revenge might be beyond him, at least for now, but he still had hope for knowing the truth. He went to sleep that night clutching that hope. I'm gonna kill a god.
Let's kill a god, everyone! Congratulations, it's officially a fantasy novel. We're killing God.
Like, you go to sleep at night clutching to the hope that you're gonna kill a god. I can't right now, but maybe I can in the future.
You know what? That is a mood I can appreciate.
Right? Like, it's not even like a no, there's no way. It's like, I might be able to do that.
Why not? Why the hell not? I'm gonna get revenge for my family. You destroyed my life. I'm gonna destroy everything. But then how do you kill Lanre, who's supposed to not be able to die? And just keep coming back. So how do you break this cycle? and it's so much fun. And he's saying that he's going to go back tomorrow and talk to Scarpy about where he gets the truths.
I will say though, like, unwittingly, we have ended our chapters in really fucking good places. Like,
Yeah, we really have.
and that's just by pure happenstance. Like, I did it mathematically, and I was like, okay, we're gonna need to get up to this chapter. I didn't see what was the end of the chapters. I was just like,
Mhm.
these are good places to stop, and I'm finding like every one that we stop on has been a great chapter. It's not really like a cliffhanger type of thing. It's like we got a resolution and we're ready to coast onto the next journey, right?
Yes, now we're just like, let's kill God.
And oh, how we get to there. Oh my god.
Ooh.
Oh my god, how we get to kill a god. Maybe.
Yes.
Who knows at this point.
And yes, and again, if this is your first time listening to one of these, welcome to the Waystone Inn. We are going to be doing these every week on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all the way through A Wise Man's Fear, because Book 3, The Doors of Stone, is due to release in July. So we are the two-person hype train.
Yes.
Yay!
Literally, I am going to have these VODs up too. I might upload them to YouTube so everybody could kind of like get refreshers and cliff notes along the way.
And it may be a good idea because they vanish after 2 weeks.
Yes. So I'm going to upload them to my channel. And if anybody wants to get their friends involved and have them join in, I would love that. And I know Minnie loves the series probably more than I do. This is one of my top 3 favorites, and I don't know if it is your favorite, but
I would say it's in my top 3.
literally, that was perfect. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'm excited to be doing these every week. Minnie's been a great co-host, and I hope to come back with more assets for you next time, more things to play around with RP on stream. It is a good lightheartedness that we could actually offer between us for the very serious tone of the story sometimes, and I'm glad we get to do that together.
I'm very glad too. I mean, we've been wanting to do this for a while, so.
But in closing, does anybody have any thoughts? I'd like to turn it to you guys for chat, and I know you guys have read ahead, some of you.
Well, this is like your 4th or 5th time rereading it. I'm trying so hard not to get into spoilers.
Honestly, like, I don't think I could do the spoilers. If I do, it's unintentional because I am refreshing my memory as I read. So, if I say anything, it's subconscious.
I know you're guilty, Aula. Okay, I think we're good.
I think we're good. Well, let's look for somebody to ride.
Oh wait, what chapters are we reading up to?
Brrrah.
Book club! We have to do a book club thing!
Do we actually want to page through and see? Or nah?
You know what? We can announce it. I can put it in the book club on my end, and we can put it up on Twitter.
So we're at 27, right?
Yes.
Let's tentatively say 42.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's manageable. It's actually not that bad.
I just want to see where 42 ends.
It's really not that bad. That's decent. It's about 100 pages, so we'd be keeping up with what our pace is.
Hell yeah. Do you guys think 42 is reasonable?
I think it is. We've been keeping up with it for the other segments.
I'll trust your judgment. You're the brains of the operation.
Never trust my judgment. That is a terrible, terrible idea.
I'm just the
I
muscle.
said the Chandrian's names out loud and got horribly sick.
Yeah, but you could deal with them, I think.
I'll take him. I'll take him. Bring him on.
I think you could deal with them. I'm gonna have a little bit of trouble, but I think you could deal with them.
That's all. I'm gonna go back to my home and sign the axe.
Okay. While you go back to your home, I am going to look for somebody to raid really quick. But I want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you so much for supporting me and supporting Minnie. I would love to have you guys back on next Thursday at 6 p.m. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all for coming.
Bye, everyone.
Back to...
The tractor mud in the house.
Oh my god.